and suspensions. So I'd like to make a motion to add to the agenda a discussion on programs and suspensions. May I have a second?
A second.
Thank you. It's been properly moved in second. Did you want to add anything else? Does anyone want to add anything else? So at this time, can we please, Dr. Rock, can you please call the roll for the two items that we just added to the agenda?
So for the purchasing process,
Correct.
programs, and that's it.
And suspensions.
Suspensions. Okay, so for purchasing process, programs, and suspensions.
Okay.
Okay. Ms. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mrs. Moomin,
Yes.
Mrs. Elba,
Yes.
Mr. Freeman,
No.
and Mrs. Gator.
Yes, motion passed 4-1. All right, item 1.5 is the approval of the minutes. May I please have a motion to approve the minutes for July 14th and July 28th?
Madam Chair, I move that this board approve 1.5 of the agenda, approval of minutes, July 14th, 2016, informational meeting, and July 28th, 2016, regular meeting.
A second.
Thank you. It's been properly moved and second. Any questions or comments about this item? Hearing none, Dr. Rock, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Moomin,
Yes.
Mrs. Elba,
Yes.
Ms. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Freeman,
Yes.
Mrs. Gator.
Yes, motion passed 5-0. Item 1.6 is public participation. Do we have any cards, Dr. Rock?
No.
Do we have any new community members that just weren't aware that they needed to fill out a card? No? Okay. All right, so we'll move right along, although actually this is a change to the agenda because you stated Highland Hills is not going to be presented.
Yes, Highland Hills will not be presenting. Warrensville, Jermaine Duval was supposed to present, but he has not arrived yet.
All right, well, if the board is okay with it, if he does arrive, we can circle back and allow him to do his presentation when he comes. Is that all right with everybody?
Yeah, both presentations are around tax incentive deals with the various municipalities.
All right, so Dr. Rock, would you just make sure that for the minutes that it is noted that neither one of them are here, and that we did not do the presentations?
Yes.
All right, so 1.9 is superintendent's updates.
Good evening, community. All right, I have a few updates that I'd like to update the board and the community on. First was our Pep Rally, which was held on last Thursday. We had over 400 families to attend. We recognize our scholars and our athletes. I'd like to thank the committee leaders who were Danielle Smiley, Member Mitchell, and Alexia Harris. A more detailed report will be given by Ms. Mitchell during the community engagement presentation. School opening was on Monday. We had a great school opening. All our principals did an outstanding job of preparing our students. We had a couple hiccups at a few schools. We had some scheduling issues at the high school. We had some transportation issues. But in both places, we're working hard to try to correct the procedures. At the high school, they're going through each student who has a schedule problem and trying to correct their schedules to make sure they're accurate. Also, with our busing, Dr. Caver tomorrow will meet with all our bus drivers. We've been meeting with Mr. Black on various occasions to try to ensure that things are rectified. Everyone is working hard, but we have a new system and the adjustments made to the new system. Hopefully they'll all be resolved by Monday. Tomorrow, the high school band will be on Fox 8 News, starting at 6:30. So they'll be on Kicking It with Kenny Compton at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I also want to announce that we are in conversations with the pastor of August Gate Church, Mr. Rafiq, Principal Vine, about starting a soccer team at Eastwood. Pastor Vine is an experienced coach, soccer coach at his other congregations. He started soccer programs. So we've talked to him about starting the program. We will have all the specifics very soon about the program that we'll bring it to the board. We are looking for donations to pay the costs for their entry into a league, in particular the Shaker Heights Soccer League. This will be our first opportunity to start a soccer team in Warrensville in recent memory, and Pastor Bass is very instrumental in this. I'd also like to announce that we have 3 summer graduates that we will invite to our September meeting. The 3 are Brian Randall, Brittany Johnson, and Ivari Hall. So we started the research in that. We found that it's not mandatory to bus high school students, but if the district, so it's not mandatory to bus the high school students. So currently we bus our K-8 students, and we have to bus our K-8 students who go to the charter schools. So we do that, and it's ones that we can't bus, we have to do it in lieu of transportation, which is $250 for those parents. So with the high school, since we don't bus our high school students, we don't have to pay that money for our high school students. So if we elect to bus our high school students, then that opens us up to having to pay for transportation for high school students who don't attend our school. Now there's a law that states that when the school is over 30 minutes away from the high school, it's impractical for us to transport them. So we won't be responsible for the transportation of the students who are 30 minutes away. So how do we determine the 30 minutes? We had to, the transportation team at 7:30 when the bus would normally run, had to do 2 runs to the various different sites. So they did it to 16 different sites to determine if it was 30 minutes or less. So there ended up being 6 schools that we are exempt from having to pay, and those schools are Lake Catholic, Notre Dame Cathedral Latin, St. Ignatius, St. Martin de Porres, Villa Angela, St. Joseph, and Lake Erie International High School. So any student that attends those, we are not required to pay the transportation costs. Now there's 10 schools that if we elect to restart transportation, we would have to incur the transportation costs of those students to go to school, which is that $250 threshold. Those schools are Beaumont, Benedictine, Central Catholic, Colgan Christian Valley Academy, Lutheranese, Capella Institute, George Voinovich Reclamation, Invictus High School, Life Skills of Northeast Ohio, and Promise Academy. So currently, we have 88 scholars who attend those various different schools. So we budgeted $250 per, it'll be $22,000 that potentially we will have to pay those parents if they elected to do the transportation in lieu. So with that, the discussion for the board moving forward, I am not ready to bring it to the board at this time, but did want to make you aware that we did the research. If the board did elect to move forward with this, we will have to draft a resolution that states that the board will provide transportation to high school students. It would also state that the board has authorized me to inform the parents of the students who live 30 minutes away that they are not eligible for transportation. It would also, for me to send letters to parents that states that it's impractical for us to transport them to the 10 different places due to just the cost of us doing it. It'll upset our current routes and the personnel cost that it would cost the different district. So it'd be impractical for us to do that. We would also have to share the parents their right to get the $250 in lieu of transportation. So with that, and also that we discussed this in open session, in a public session about the possibilities of this process. So with that, as we settle our transportation issues within the district and we continue to work on this situation, we will look to bring this to the board in the near future to transport our students to our high school students. So I'm open to any questions about any of my report at this time.
Does anyone have any questions before I go? Oh. All right, so let me just ask you this when it comes to transportation. I heard you say $22,000, and that is under the assumption that all 88 families say, yep, we just want to pay the $250. However, if a portion of those individuals don't want to do it, then we have to transport them.
No, we wouldn't have to transport them. They just elected not to take the in lieu of transportation. Because we're going to send them a letter that says it's impractical for us to transport them. And we're going to send a letter, in that letter, that says in lieu of the transportation, they could get the $250. So if they don't invoke the $250, then we're not responsible for transporting them.
So it doesn't matter then that they're over 30 miles, like the Villa Angelas and the other, or 30 minutes rather.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So no, it doesn't. So the over 30, we don't have to worry about it all.
at all.
But then 30, we do have to have monies available to pay them if they elect to take it.
And the primary reason for holding off is because you want to explore this some more?
Well, I wanted to explore it some more. I wanted to share with the board all the possibilities with the program. It is a cost with implementing it. Mr. Black has told me that it's minimal cost on our side because he's already has it inside of the schedule, and we pulled it off because we didn't have board approval. So it's a cost, and I wanted to bring it to the board due to the cost. And also, I want to give our transportation more time to settle out the new system, issues with the new system, to ensure it's together.
So, Mr. Jolly, so you're stating we would not need additional personnel to transport the children?
No, our current personnel can transport, is sufficient to transport our high school students.
And would it impact getting our kids to school on time?
At this point, for Mr. Black, there should be no impact in what our current process is. But I do want to put this caveat in. I want to be sure that our current process is running efficiently before I add to it. So that's been my hesitation with bringing this forward. Initially, my plan was to bring it forward, but after school started, and I saw the issues that we were having, my hesitation is to ensure that we have our current process together. Then once that's together, then we evaluate again to see if our manpower is sufficient to do it. If it's not sufficient, then I would have to incur those costs and bring those costs back to the board before we move forward.
Okay, thank you.
One quick question. One of my biggest concerns has always been transporting high school students from Country Lane during the winter month. Is that a possibility or just completely off the table?
I think it's all on the table. I think all neighborhoods are on the table. We can't do one neighborhood and not do the other.
Right.
So it's going to be all or nothing. So if everything works out, we can have this approved the first meeting in September or the second meeting in September and give the transportation a week time to implement it, for us to properly inform the parents, to everyone establish where the stop's at, and then implement it. So it's just about us knowing exactly what our true costs are. Once we identify our true costs, then the board approving that we're going to spend or we're going to reserve this amount of money to cover the in lieu of transportation. I want to be sure that there's no more labor costs, meaning that we need to add more drivers or another bus, just to ensure and see what those costs would be. And at the end of the day, if it all is approved, it's good, then I'll bring it to you to approve. And after approval, a week later, we can start the busing.
I have a question for you, Mr. Jolly. Currently, we're paying for the other children not actually going to our district to transport those students, correct? We're paying for it?
We're paying for K-8 students.
Right.
We transport the ones internal, that schools inside of our district, we transport to Green, Inspiration, STEAM, and Haley. And T2, which is a high school, we bus to them too. So all four of them, we bus. And then all the other students who go to charter schools are eligible for the in lieu payments at this time. I think, how many people, wasn't it 80 people who applied for that in lieu this year? How many, Mr. Black? So far, we have 30? 36. So And that's our K-8 students. So the ones that go to school in Cleveland that's
Right.
within that 30 miles are eligible to receive that payment.
Okay, thank you.
And I just have one quick question. So in terms of the in lieu, what if the parent comes in at the middle of the school year, or they leave in the middle of the school year? Are we still obligated to pay the full $250, or is it prorated?
It's prorated.
Okay, so this
prorated.
$22,000 is,
It could be fluid based on usage.
all right.
But my concern is to ensure that our costs on our side, meaning our bus drivers and buses, that is minimal. So, Mr. Black, he did a study on it earlier, but we want to revisit it before we bring it to the board to ensure we know exact costs. If we got to put another bus on the line, how much that'll cost. I think, Mr. Black, the drivers, we good with drivers to move to high school.
Yeah, we put routes in place to be prepared for it, so everything's in place. It's just a matter of when you guys decide if you want to do it or not.
Okay.
And finally, do we have a method in place, and this might be for Mr. Black, and if you guys need to get back on this, then that's fine. Do we have a method in place to track whether or not these students came in 6 months into the year, or to track the prorations? Do we actually track the prorations? So,
No, we did. We just wanted to make sure that they finish the school year. That's how it's been done. If you leave in the middle, then you check it. Like now this year, we go back and check it a little bit earlier. So say maybe in April, May, because parents aren't going to leave that late in the school year, so we can account for everybody. I think in the past, we didn't account for the money for the right, but we just do a list and then put it out.
and the only reason I mention that,
I'm sorry to interject.
Go ahead.
That is the control, waiting to make sure that they finish the school year. So we did check
Yeah,
that.
because it was the odds of somebody.
That was how we determined who we were gonna, if they were eligible for the payment, if they made it through the school year. That was the first step.
okay.
This year, that's what delayed it this year, because we put that in place, and then we had to wait on certain schools, because some of the schools were closed, so we had to wait on them to ensure that we had it, one school combined, so there was some variables that were out of our control. This year, we'll push it back a little bit more and say, okay, we'll change.
But it's a traditional payment that comes out in the summertime, because you have to wait for the school year to end. You gotta complete your due diligence to audit the list, and then the payments go out in July, August.
Okay.
So we definitely think busing the high school students will improve the attendance rate at the high school. Those winter months, when it's dark outside, 7:30, 8 o'clock, that's a long walk in the dark. Every child does not have a ride to school. So I know
makes it too easy for dishonest people to cheat. And so I'm really concerned about that. I'll be on the ballot November 8th, and I would like to have your support. So when you vote for president, please keep going.